The night Nia Carter learned the truth, it wasn't through a text message, a whisper, or a suspicious glance. It was through a calm, steady voice that didn't tremble when it delivered devastation. The ballroom shimmered beneath crystal chandeliers, filled with Korea's most powerful investors and entrepreneurs. Nia stood near the balcony doors, adjusting the cuff of her emerald dress, reminding herself she belonged in that room. She had earned her invitation. A black event stylist from Atlanta landing a luxury contract in Seoul was no small achievement. She had come to the party with her boyfriend Marcus, who claimed he needed to network upstairs. She hadn't questioned it. Ambition recognized ambition. When the doors behind her slid open, she expected Marcus. Instead, a tall man in a tailored charcoal suit stepped onto the balcony. His posture was composed, almost intimidating, yet there was a quiet exhaustion in his eyes. "Your boyfriend is upstairs with my wife," he said evenly. The words didn't register at first. They felt misplaced, like dialogue from a drama series. Nia let out a short laugh. "I think you have the wrong person." "I don't," he replied, handing her his phone. There, unmistakable and recent, was a photo from moments ago. Marcus and a woman Nia recognized from introductions earlier that evening. The woman clung to him in a way that left no room for misunderstanding. The man extended his hand. Kang Joon-ho. The name clicked instantly. Geo. Tech mogul. Married. Humiliation rushed through her, hot and suffocating. Yet oddly, the man beside her wasn't angry. He looked resigned. Inside the ballroom, laughter echoed. Outside, two strangers stood bound by betrayal. And in that silent space between heartbreak and dignity, something unexpected began. Neither of them moved toward the stairs. The music from inside the ballroom grew louder as the balcony doors opened and closed with careless laughter. Nia's chest felt tight, but she refused to let tears fall. Not here, not in front of a stranger who was suffering the same humiliation. Kang Joon-ho checked his watch with composed precision. "If we go upstairs now, it becomes a spectacle," he said calmly. "Investors, media, staff. It would damage more than pride." His voice wasn't cold. It was strategic. Nia folded her arms, steadying herself. "So what do you suggest?" "There's a private lounge down the hall. We wait." The absurdity of the situation almost made her laugh again. Two betrayed partners scheduling their heartbreak like a business meeting. Still she nodded. Inside the lounge, the noise of the party faded into a distant hum. The lighting was softer, quieter, too peaceful for what they had just discovered. They sat across from each other at a low glass table, the silence thick but not hostile. "I trusted her," Joon-ho admitted after a moment. "I built my company from nothing. I thought loyalty in business meant loyalty in marriage." Nia looked down at her hands. "I supported Marcus for 3 years. Every late night. Every risky plan." She swallowed. "I thought struggle meant commitment." Their eyes met, not in romance, not in curiosity, but in recognition. Two people who had invested their hearts wisely in every area of life, except love. Minutes later, the lounge door creaked open. Marcus stood there, guilt splashed across his face. Behind him, Joon-ho's wife avoided eye contact. Nia rose slowly. She didn't shout. She didn't beg. She simply walked past Marcus without a word. Joon-ho followed her out. Not as a hero. Not as revenge. But as someone who understood exactly what she had just lost. By morning, the party was over, but the consequences had just begun. Seoul's elite circles thrived on quiet gossip. No one posted photos. No one tagged names. But whispers traveled faster than headlines. Investors noticed tension. Board members asked careful questions. Staff members exchanged knowing glances. Kang Joon-ho handled it the way he handled everything, with precision. Within a week, legal proceedings began. There was no dramatic press conference, no public blame. Just a brief corporate statement announcing a mutual separation. His composure impressed shareholders. His silence protected his company. Nia's breakup was less polished. Marcus called repeatedly, leaving long messages about mistakes and misunderstandings. She listened to none of them. Instead, she poured herself into work, channeling heartbreak into sketches, designs, and contracts. If betrayal had shaken her heart, it would not shake her ambition. 3 weeks later, her assistant rushed into her studio, phone in hand. "You're not going to believe this." The caller ID displayed a name she recognized instantly. "Kong Holdings." Nia answered, her voice steady. On the other end was Joon-ho himself. "I'm relocating our headquarters," he said without preamble. "Complete interior redesign. I reviewed your portfolio. I want your firm to lead the project. There was no sympathy in his tone. No emotional undercurrent. Just professionalism. Nia hesitated. Working this closely with him could invite rumors. People would assume strategy where there was none. Why me? She asked carefully. Pause. Because you're good, he replied. And because I prefer building new foundations with people who understand what rebuilding means. The words lingered after the call ended. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't pity. It was opportunity. And Nia had never been afraid of hard work, only of wasting her heart on the wrong investment. The first day Nia walked into Kang Holdings as the lead designer, she felt the weight of every curious stare. Employees bowed respectfully to their CEO as he passed, their expressions unreadable. To them, she was simply the foreign consultant hired to reimagine the company's future. To a select few who had attended the party weeks ago, she was something more complicated. Joon-ho greeted her in the conference room with a professional nod. No lingering glances. No acknowledgement of shared history. Just business. Let's begin, he said. The headquarters renovation demanded long hours. Glass walls were replaced with warmer textures. Harsh lighting softened. Nia envisioned a space that felt less like power and more like possibility. Late evenings became routine. Most of the staff left by 9, but Joon-ho remained. Sometimes reviewing contracts. Sometimes simply watching her pin design samples to the board. You don't design for appearance, he observed one night. You design for feeling. Nia glanced at him. Spaces should tell people they belong there. A quiet understanding passed between them. As weeks unfolded, the rigid image the media portrayed began to fade. She noticed how he remembered every employee's name. How he quietly approved bonuses for overworked teams. How he listened before speaking. One evening, after an exhausting meeting with skeptical investors, Nia found takeout boxes arranged neatly on the conference table. For your team, he said simply. They've earned it. She smiled despite herself. You didn't have to. I know, he replied. Their conversations drifted beyond blueprints. Childhood memories. Cultural expectations. The pressure of never failing. For the first time since the party, the memory of betrayal didn't dominate the room. They weren't bonded by heartbreak anymore. They were building something steady, brick by brick, choice by choice, without even realizing it. Pressure has a way of revealing what composure hides. The investor meeting that afternoon had not gone well. A delayed product launch, a dip in projected numbers, murmurs about leadership stability. Each question had been sharper than the last. Joon-ho answered them all with measured confidence, but Nia noticed the faint tightening of his jaw, the slight pause before each response. By evening the building had emptied. Nia returned to the conference room to retrieve her tablet and found him standing alone by the floor-to-ceiling windows, Seoul's skyline glowing behind him. His jacket lay folded on the chair. His shoulders, usually squared with authority, seemed heavier. You handled that well, she said gently. He gave a small, humorless smile. Handling something well doesn't mean it doesn't cost you. For a moment neither spoke. The city lights flickered below, indifferent to corporate battles and broken marriages alike. I keep thinking, he admitted quietly, that I should have seen the signs. In business I analyze risk before every decision. But in my personal life, I was blind. Nia stepped closer, not as a designer or contractor, but as someone who understood regret. Trusting someone isn't blindness, she said. It's courage. The wrong person just makes it feel foolish. He looked at her then, not as an employee, not as an ally, but as someone offering truth without agenda. The space between them closed naturally. Nia reached for his hand first, squeezing it lightly. When his composure faltered for the briefest second, she did what felt instinctive. She wrapped her arms around him. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rushed. It was steady. For a few quiet seconds, he allowed himself to lean into it. No romance. No expectation. Just two people choosing comfort over pride. And in that simple embrace, something fragile began to heal. Success attracts applause. Proximity to power attracts suspicion. It started with a blog post. Anonymous, speculative, careful not to accuse directly. Foreign designer gains exclusive access to CEO after divorce. Within hours, online forums filled in the blanks with their own conclusions. Nia saw the article before her team did. She closed her laptop quietly, but the words lingered in her mind. Opportunist, strategic, calculated. By midday the atmosphere at headquarters felt different. Conversations hushed when she passed. Not everyone believed the rumors, but enough people were curious. Joon-ho called an unscheduled meeting that afternoon. The entire executive team gathered, expecting a financial update. Instead, he stood at the head of the table and spoke with deliberate clarity. Ms. Nia Carter was hired because she is the most qualified candidate for this project, he said. Her contract predates any personal assumptions being circulated. Kang Holdings does not tolerate disrespect toward our partners. There was no anger in his voice, only authority. The message was clear. Later that evening, Nia found him reviewing documents in his office. You didn't have to address it publicly, she said. Yes, I did, he replied without looking up. Silence can protect dignity. But it can also encourage injustice. She hesitated. This could affect your reputation. He finally met her eyes. Reputation is built over decades. Gossip lasts days. The certainty in his voice unsettled her, not because she doubted him, but because she feared the cost of standing beside him. People will say I planned this, she admitted softly. Let them, he answered. I know the truth, and so do you. The room fell quiet. For the first time, Nia realized something more dangerous than rumors was growing between them. Trust. And trust required bravery neither of them had planned to offer again. By the time the headquarters renovation neared completion, the building no longer felt like the same place. The cold steel edges had softened into warm textures. Natural light filtered through redesigned panels. Open collaboration spaces replaced intimidating closed doors. Employees lingered longer in common areas, talking freely. The transformation wasn't just architectural, it was emotional. On the night before the grand opening, Nia walked alone through the lobby, adjusting the final floral installations. The company logo gleamed against a newly crafted wooden feature wall. It symbolized strength, but now it also carried warmth. She sensed him before she heard him. You changed more than the design, Joon-ho said quietly from behind her. She turned. He wasn't wearing his usual sharp suit, just a simple dress shirt, sleeves slightly rolled. Lesio. More man. That was the goal, she replied. Buildings reflect leadership. He considered that. Then perhaps I needed rebuilding too. The honesty in his voice made her chest tighten. They walked side by side through the corridor, their footsteps echoing softly. No assistants. No investors. No whispers. I used to think control prevented pain, he admitted. If I planned everything perfectly, nothing could surprise me. And now, she asked. Now I know some risks are worth taking. They stopped near the glass atrium overlooking the city lights. The same skyline that had witnessed their heartbreak now shimmered like possibility. He faced her fully. I am afraid to trust again, he said plainly. But I am more afraid of losing something real because of fear. Nia's heart pounded, not with anxiety, but with clarity. Instead of words, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him first this time. It wasn't a gesture of comfort. It was a choice. I choose trust, she whispered. And for the first time, neither of them felt like victims of betrayal. They felt like authors of something new. Love may begin between two people but forever asks for more. When Joon-ho told his parents about Nia, the silence on the other end of the phone lasted longer than he expected. Tradition mattered deeply in his family. Expectations had always shaped his choices. His education, his career, even his first marriage. This is different, he told them calmly. She is different. A week later, Nia found herself seated in his parents' elegant dining room, hands folded neatly in her lap. She had chosen her outfit carefully, respectful, modest, true to herself. The aroma of carefully prepared dishes filled the air. His mother observed her quietly at first, asking polite questions about her business, her upbringing, her parents. Nia answered honestly, speaking about Atlanta, about building her company from scratch, about learning resilience early in life. When she described how her mother taught her that character mattered more than status, something softened in the older woman's expression. Joon-ho's father asked about her long-term goals. I want to build spaces where people feel seen, Nia replied. In business and in life. There was no performance in her voice, only sincerity. By the end of the evening, his mother insisted she try another serving of dessert. It wasn't dramatic acceptance, but it was a beginning. Months later, Joon-ho traveled to Atlanta to meet Nia's family. Her mother welcomed him warmly but studied him closely. Over dinner, he listened more than he spoke, answering every question with thoughtful respect. When he helped clear the table without being asked, Nia caught her mother smiling. Different languages, different customs, shared values. Love wasn't about abandoning where they came from. It was about building a bridge wide enough for both worlds to cross. And slowly, carefully, their families began walking toward each other. It had been a year since the party that changed everything. The grand opening of the newly redesigned Kang Holdings headquarters was scheduled for the evening, and the same ballroom that once held whispers of betrayal now shimmered with light and celebration. Nia adjusted the hem of her dress, watching guests mingle and laugh. The familiar hum of Seoul's elite had returned, but it no longer carried judgment, it carried admiration. For her work. For the transformation. For the integrity she had shown through every rumor and challenge. Joon-ho appeared at her side, effortlessly composed in a tailored suit. But tonight, there was something different in his expression. Softness, anticipation, something that made her heart flutter despite the public setting. As the evening progressed, speeches were made, accolades given, and applause followed every mention of the project's success. But then Joon-ho stepped onto the small stage at the center of the ballroom. Silence fell instantly. "In this very room," he began, voice calm yet commanding, "I experienced one of the hardest moments of my life. It taught me that betrayal can come unexpectedly, but so can redemption." He gestured toward Nia. "Redemption came in the form of someone who taught me patience, resilience, and trust. Someone who reminded me that loyalty isn't just a word, it's a choice. Nia Carter, will you build forever with me?" The room seemed to disappear. Nia's eyes filled with tears as he stepped down and held out his hands. She walked forward without hesitation, placing her hands in his. "I will," she whispered. He pulled her into a steady embrace, and the applause erupted around them, not for the spectacle but for the authenticity they radiated. In that moment the past, hurt, betrayal and fear, faded completely. They had chosen each other openly and without compromise, proving that love could thrive in the light of truth. And as they stood together on that stage, Nia realized that forever was no longer a distant dream. It had begun here with trust, courage, and the willingness to embrace it. The wedding was small, intimate. No grandiose displays. Just family, close friends, and the people who had truly witnessed their journey. Nia walked down the aisle in a simple, elegant gown, carrying only a bouquet of white lilies. Joon-ho waited at the altar, his usual composed demeanor softened by a genuine smile. The officiant's words were brief, yet resonant, speaking of partnership, commitment, and growth. When they exchanged vows, there were no dramatic proclamations, just promises built on honesty, respect, and trust. "I promise to choose you every day," Joon-ho said, holding her hands firmly. "Through every challenge, every triumph. I choose us." Nia smiled, tears welling but steady. "And I promise to trust, to support, and to build our life together, not just with love, but with understanding and patience." They sealed their vows with a hug, long and steady. It was the same kind of hug that had first comforted them months ago, now transformed into a declaration of commitment. Around them, family and friends celebrated quietly, sensing the depth of what had been built. Years later, they would often laugh about the unlikely beginning, the sentence that had once brought humiliation. "Your boyfriend is upstairs with my wife." It had led them here, not to revenge, not to resentment, but to something far stronger. A partnership grounded in mutual respect, shared dreams, and unwavering trust. Together, they co-founded a mentorship foundation connecting young entrepreneurs in Atlanta and Seoul, helping others rebuild their dreams with guidance, courage, and integrity. Their love became a symbol not of scandal but of choice, proving that beginnings marked by pain could grow into a lifetime of joy. And every time they held each other, they remembered that forever begins where pride ends, and trust becomes the foundation of everything.